Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome to my channel, Learn Math with Sayyid Ali. So, we are in helping to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and schools are closed. So, we are performing social distances and isolating at our home to avoid spreading illness to others. So to help kids at home, here is the new topic, which is ratio and proportion. Ratio and proportion is very important concept. What is ratio? So ratio is to compare two quantities. So what is the definition? Most of the kids forget the definition when we ask something or examples. What is example of ratio? Even they are in 9 or grade 10, they cannot define ratio and proportion. But it's a very important concept. So we have here this chapter. Ratio is to compare two quantities, whereas proportion is an equation which shows that two ratios are equivalent. Two ratios are equivalent. So how the ratio is indicated? Ratio is indicated as two dots between the two quantities. So if A and B are two quantities in certain ratio, we say A ratio B. How we read it? A ratio B. And if another ratio is C is to D, right? Two quantities C and D are in proportion. If we are equating, so proportion is an equation. So when we equate them, right? So these four dots are called proportion. So whereas the proportion is an equation which shows that two ratios are equivalent. So I show it here for you. Just you remember the simple definition, one line definition. Ratio is to compare the two quantities, whereas proportion is an equation which shows that two ratios are equivalent. So you have the example here for A is to B and B is to C, and we are comparing it. So how we read it? We read it as A is to B, right? A is to B. Sometimes we read it like A is to B if we want to read it, right? Or A to B, simply A to B. How we write? If somebody is saying A is to B or A to B, means A is to B. Same, A to B, right? And there are certain ways of writing it. So as a fraction, we can write ratio as a fraction. So we can write A is to B like this, or A divided by B. This is a second way of writing it. So A divided by B. For example, so A is to, for example, I have two circles and I have three rectangles, right? For example, this is just to understand it. So how many circles are here? Now I'm saying that using the word circle two triangles, what is the relationship? 2 is to 3 or 2 to 3. This is my relationship between circle and triangle. And I can write it as a fraction. So I can also write it as 2 over 3, right? And I can also write it as 2 ratio 3. So there are three different ways to express this relationship, which is called ratio. Ratio is to compare the two quantities, whereas proportion is an equation. Now what we are saying, let's say we have an example, 3 is to 4, 3 is 4 or 3 is to 4, right? 3 is to 4 as B is to 24. B is to 24. So as means now we are saying something different. It's two ratios, 3 is to 4. 3 is to 4 is one ratio, and we are saying as. That means we are trying to equate them. As, that means proportion. We want to develop an equation. Here it is, equation, right? So proportion means is we are equating. We are forming the equation now. B is to 24. B is to 24. Now in this example, we have our B unknown and we can find out B. Today in this class, we will learn how to find out if the two ratios are given in proportion, how to find out the missing number or missing alphabet, right? So there is an alphabet, and then we have to find out the that missing alphabet, right? The value of that missing alphabet. For example, here 3:4 as B:24. So what we have? We have 3 divided by 4. Another way of writing it. So we write it in a fractional form. 3:4 can be written as 3 divided by 4, and B:24 is B divided by 24. Now we have to isolate B. There are 2 methods we can solve it, right? One method is using an equivalent fraction, that we see that how we can get 4 to 64. So everybody can answer, okay, 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 6 is 24. And then we have to say what number here should be written, which gives me when multiplied by 3, right? When multiplied by 3, so it should be multiplied by 8, multiplied by 6, because how we get this? We get this by multiplying 4 by 6, right? 24. So I have to multiply 3 by 6. So 6 times 3 is 18. So my B is equals to 18. So I find out by one method. This method is called using equivalent fraction. Using equivalent fraction. So we find out what number is making my denominator shift and what number would be, the same number would be applied to make the numerator. So other method is called isolating K or isolating B, whatever variable is here. So my variable is B, so I have to isolate it, right? So I will isolate it here. 3:4 is equals to B:24, and then we can write in fraction 3/4 is equals to B divided by 24. Now I have to isolate B. To isolate B, the method I will use is called cross multiplication. Cross multiplication. What is cross multiplication? We multiply this side, left side of the numerator, with the right side of the denominator, and vice versa. So I am making this arrow here, what I am multiplying together. So this side of the numerator with the denominator, numerator with the denominator. And then I will be having a linear relationship between this, right? So 4 times B, I multiply this, and then I multiply 3 times 24. So please remember this. This will be the basic math, and that will develop basic algebra. So what we do cross multiplication. What is cross multiplication? If fractions are given with a equation sign, like equals to sign, then we can cross multiply. Cross multiply means numerator of the one side multiply with the denominator of the other side. Numerator of the one side multiplied with the denominator. This makes the equation linear. Here it was fraction form, and now I have a linear relationship or linear equation where B is being multiplied by 4, and I have to get rid of 4 to isolate B. I need to isolate B, that means I need to get rid of 4. And what 4 is doing on this side of the equation, on the left side of the equation, it is multiplying B. So rule is, if we want to shift this 4 to the other side of the equation, we do the opposite operation. So what is opposite operation now? We have to think. So 4 is being multiplied, and to the other side of the equation it goes and divide. So opposite operation of multiplication is division, right? So if something is being multiplied at one side of the equation, you can transfer it to the other side, but with the opposite operation. So opposite operation of multiplication is division. So I shift it as a division, and then I cut it. 4 ones are 4, 4 8s are 24. I am nothing in the denominator now, and my numerator is 3 times 8 is 24. So my answer is 24, right? So we do the cross multiplication 3 times 24 and 4 times B, right? Oh, 6, sorry. 4 times 6 is 24, and 6 times 3 is 18. So my answer is B is equals to 18. So it's the same answer, right? So we do the math in two ways. One is called using equivalent fraction and other is called isolation method or isolating the variable. So we will be practicing it a little more to how to get the unknown variable, and we will write few more examples, right? So if you want to revise it, you can revise it one more time with me. Ratio is to compare two quantities, whereas proportion is an equation which shows that two ratios are equivalent, right? A is to B, proportion, C is to D. We can also write it as a fraction. A over B is equals to C over D, right? And what are the examples in real life situation? We have rate of speed, distance divided by time. All the time we say, okay, we cover this distance in particular through this car or cycle or aeroplane in certain time. And this is the ratio, what we cover, what distance we cover in a certain time. So rate of speed is a ratio between the two quantities. And what are those two quantities? Distance and time. Price is a ratio, right, of what? Two quantities, dollars and for example meter, for example kilogram, or for example anything which we are measuring into. So this is how we deal with the ratio and proportion definition. And now I am putting up some examples to go further into the details that how to calculate the unknown variable, right? For example, so k over 6 is equals to 15 divided by 18, let's say. So what is first method? Using equivalent fraction or factors. What is equivalent? How we can get 18 from 6, right? So my answer is 6 times 3. So I will say, okay, 6 times 3 is 18. So what should or how should I can get 15? What number here I should put if we multiply that by 3 to get 15? So my answer is k is equals to 5. So this is just oral method, but this is for the little examples where we can pass through the table easily. But when it is a big numbers or big equation, we have to use isolating method or isolation of the variable. How to isolate variable, right? Variable. Isolation or isolate the variable means that we have to shift everything to the other side of the equation and keep the variable alone at one side of the equation, right? So if we have this, that means k over 6 is equals to 15 divided by 18. So I have to keep this here k alone. I have to get rid of this 6. What 6 is doing with k is a division because it is in the denominator. So it is dividing k. If I want to shift this 6 to the other side of the equation, as I told you, that it will does the opposite operation. Here it is dividing. So on the other side of the equation, it will go and sit as a multiplier. So it's in a multiplying. So now I have to cut 6 ones are 6, 6 3s are 18, 3 ones are 3, 3 5s are 15. So my answer is k is equals to 5. So again, I got the same answer with the two methods, but we have to practice how to isolate variable, right? So we turn our ratios and proportion questions into the equation questions, and equation questions always telling us that if one quantity is unknown and the things are written in proportion like in an equation, you can find out the unknown variable if 3 of the quantities are given, right? If 3 of the quantities are given. So we will take few more examples to make sure that we understand things rightly. So 2 is to p is equals to 12 is to 6. What I will be doing? I will be doing isolating method or isolating the variable, right? What variable is here? P. What is the first step? First step is to put this ratio into fraction. So we put these two into fraction and then we cross multiply. We should make a rule that we will cross multiply. So cross multiply will make my fractions linear, Now my equation is linear. 12 times p is equals to 2 times 6, right? So we multiply numerator of one side to the denominator of the other side. This method is called cross multiplication. Then we see what 12 is doing with p, multiplication. How we can get rid of p? By dividing it to the other side, right? So we shift it to the other side as a division or as a divisor, because here 12 was multiplying. So rule is that whatever it does the function, if you want to switch it to the other side of the equation, it goes and sit as a opposite function. So what is opposite function of multiplication? Division. What is opposite function of addition? Subtraction. So p here, 6 to the 12, 12 in the top, 12 in the bottom, so they cancels each other and my answer is 1, right? Let's take another example. N is to 10 is equals to 8 is to 20. So I can transform it into fraction. N over 10 is equals to 8 over 20, and then I have to cross multiply, right, to make it linear. So 20 times n is equals to 10 times 8. So n is equals to 10 times 8 divided by 20, because here 20 is multiplying, other side of the equation it goes and divide. So now I have to cut 10 ones are 10, 10 twos are 20, 2 ones are 2, 2 fours are 8. So your answer is n is equals to 4. So in this way, we learn here what is ratio, what is proportion, and how to solve the equation to get the unknown variable. So hope you like the video. If you like it, please subscribe my channel, press the bell icon button, like my video, and thank you for watching.